we've brought up games like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and The Last of Us. Those are, I think, are genre-defying games. I think those are generation-defying games, and I think God of War Ragnarok belongs on that mantle.
Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Movie Podcast. Today we are reviewing God of War Ragnarok for the PS5, and we have a special guest on this show as well. I'd love to introduce him. It's Klein Felt, writer, editor for the Direct.com, and host of a video game podcast called Controller Club. Klein, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us and talking about this awful game that we absolutely all of us hated.
Just the absolute worst. Thank you guys so much for for having me. I'm happy to be here. Feel like it has been a long time coming. I've been talking to Dan and Shay online for quite some time, and I'm excited to talk about this game. God of War Ragnarok. I can't believe we're here.
Yeah, neither can I. I'm sure all of us are kind of still reeling in. I just wrapped up the game about an hour ago, so if I start crying randomly, it's because I'm still remembering how beautiful this game was and how much I loved it. We want to say thank you so much to PlayStation for sending us the review codes for this game as well. And let me get into all about the Movie Podcast first. As always, you can catch a brand new episode of our show every single Monday, and watch out throughout the week for our review episodes and interviews that drop randomly. And of course, make sure you're following us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd. Don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and join our Discord as well. Our email is hello@themoviepodcast.ca, and all of our show notes, including all of Klein's wonderful information that I'm going to have him plug at the end again in our show notes at the bottom. So please go ahead and jump into that. Guys, we're here. Everyone's done the game, luckily, or else we wouldn't really be talking about this. This has been a monumental experience. I think none of us expected this game to go the way that it was. We all knew we'd have a good time with it. I just don't think we were ready to feel the way we were feeling. And obviously we're going to jump into all that, our reactions, our reviews, and everything. But before we do that, we have some announcements, and I'd love our friend over here, Daniel, from the show, of course, to tell us all about it.
I was wondering when you were going to introduce Anthony and I. I'm like, this guy just wants to talk about God of War, just wants to talk to Klein. He doesn't care that we're here. No, it's Klein. Thank you for joining us. We're so happy to have you, and it's yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this game. So I don't blame you at all, Shay. We have a lot going on in the Movie Podcast right now. We have a lot of incredible episodes out that you could listen to. To start this week, we had a main episode drop where we spoke all about James Gunn taking over DC Studios, what that's going to look like. We also have our interview with Charlie Hunnam and the cast of Shantaram coming out later this week as well too. So we had a great time talking with Charlie Hunnam. Make sure you tune in for that very, very soon. And then we're going into busy season. If you couldn't tell already, everything is coming out all at once, all these movies, all these shows. So next week, we'll have our review of Wakanda Forever, which you'll be listening to spoiler-free, of course. So we won't be revealing anything just like this review today. We're going no spoilers. We're not revealing anything. But next week, you could also check out our interview with Ludwig Göransson and some of the cast of Wakanda Forever. So make sure you tune in for that. We're very, very excited. And some more stuff. Who knows? I mean, there's always something going on in the Movie Podcast. So we're just so happy to be doing this. Look forward to everything. And as Shay said, make sure you're following us on all of our socials, because you don't want to miss anything that we have going on.
Yes, thank you for that. And you know what? While I'm at it, I might as well just introduce you guys. I know Klein really is the main entree here today, but let me get to what we have as well. You've heard their voices, you've seen their faces before. Daniel, Anthony, thank you again for getting to talk about this game. I'm so excited. Anthony, how are you doing today?
You know that character in God of War that gets ripped apart and then decapitated? That's how I felt being part of the intro to this show. That's me. I was just garbage.
Wow.
Shay hit R3 so fast on Anthony's corpse. It just
when like
ripped
you
him
have to
off.
sell something to the dwarves, you were the first thing I sold. Like that right away. I was
Pretty
like,
much.
yeah, sell. Yeah, sell all right away. I hit triangle on both of you so quickly. No, I'm just excited to talk about God of War. I'm glad you're doing well. This is going to be a great experience. Do you guys want to get into the game, or should we? Is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about first?
Oh man, this weather today is beautiful.
No, we say no weather talks on the show.
No. I'm ready to talk about it. I can't wait for everybody listening to this to get to play it very, very soon. Like it's one of those things that we've been looking forward to this game for so long.
Yeah.
That the fact that it is now like in our possession, I think is still like settling in with us, right?
I'm at a loss for words, which is a bad thing when you're doing a podcast about a show and or game. Sorry. So, I mean, hopefully, though, I'll find my words soon. But let's get into the synopsis for the game. So, Daniel, if you want to give us what God of War Ragnarok is all about.
Yes, so this, of course, is coming from Santa Monica Studios and Sony Interactive. This is the sequel to God of War 2018, which I think we all loved so much. But Fimbulwinter is well underway, and Kratos and Atreus must journey to the Nine Realms in search of answers as Asgardian forces prepare for a prophesied battle that will end the worlds. The threat of Ragnarok grows ever closer. Kratos and Atreus must choose between their own safety and the safety of the realms. And like Shay said, this game is going to be releasing November 9th on PS4 and PS5.
And I believe we all played on the PS5 this version of the game.
We did.
Yep.
Wicked,
We
amazing.
did, yeah.
No one played on the PS3 because that's impossible. You can't do that. So it's.
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, that'd be really crazy. Just
Damn.
2 frames a second, the game would run.
Yeah,
Probably. at
Santa
most.
Monica, there's magicians over there getting this to work everywhere.
I've been hearing though that the game runs extremely well on the PS4 as well, which is a feat, I think, at this point. Klein, if you want to give us your first reactions to God of War Ragnarok.
How do I distill this down into just like a nice little package with a bow on it? This game is a straight up masterpiece. I think starting things off with definitive statements is never a good thing, but I think this might be the most polished video game I've ever played. Every piece of this game fits into everything else so spectacularly that when you look at it from a macro level, it just like fits so well together and every piece just works. But then when you dive down into the combat and the characters and the story and everything else, even the music, stuff like that, every little bit, every ingredient that makes this soup delicious is also delicious. And I'm blown away because the first game was amazing and the foundation it built, I thought there's no way that they're going to fumble. And they go bigger, they go brighter, they go better in a lot of cases. And it hits, I would say, like 99% of the time. And I don't have any major criticisms. I think there's one character arc that I'm like, okay, but everything else, I'm like, it blew me away at how much I loved every piece of this thing.
You're absolutely right. Like it is tough to start with a definitive statement like that, but without overblowing it, it really is a masterpiece. There is so much polish to this game that you put so well, and I think what I loved about it is that this game came out, only just 4 years after the last one, and we're almost in again, maybe it's the fault of the internet or maybe it's just our expectations. We were going, I mean, at least I was going in like, oh, this is going to be like Spider-Man Miles Morales, where it's a much smaller game and kind of just takes some of the same elements and just tries to make it a little better, but overall feels like a great expansion to an already amazing game. And then, Santa Monica took a Leviathan axe to my throat and said, "No, this is not at all what you're expecting. You have no idea what you're about to get into." And boy, I'm just so excited to talk about it. Boy,
yeah, there's the first boy of the show. It is funny though because it does feel very much like a part 2 as well. Though I remember sitting down after that first 5 hours when we were allowed to talk about that first little bit, and I sat down with some friends and I said, like, this, it feels like part 2. It feels like I'm playing more of that first game, and then it just keeps going and going and goes places and introduces things and does things that I was just not expecting. And I'm like, wow, okay, this feels way more like a sequel. This is a God of War 2 rather than a part 2, even though the story itself is literally, it feels like you are turning over a new chapter at the beginning of this game and you're just reading the same book.
Yeah, you definitely see that with in that first 5 hours, and I think we were talking about that. All of us were just like, the first 5 hours of this game are very familiar, and it's almost like it starts off right away, but it's still introducing the audience. It's kind of like guiding them into the story, and then after that moment, it's like, okay, welcome to the sequel.
Yeah, no, I think that you put that beautifully well. Like in the first 5 hours to me, same thing. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I'm used to. This is what I remember. I'm glad we're getting into a sequel. And then right away they're like, no. You have no idea what to expect. It flips it over and just gives us a whole new meaning to what God of War can be and could be. And now, guess what? It is. Anthony, I'd love to hear your first reactions to God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, this game is absolutely magnificent. I'm so shocked because getting into it, it did feel like, God of War 1.5, and I'm like, this can't be it. This can't be the game they've been making for the past 3 or 4 years. There needs to be more. And holy shit, this game goes from 0 to 60 real quick. It brings you to places you've never been. The gaming mechanics are absolutely fantastic. You're jumping, you're chopping things up. You have your weapons that you can navigate through so quickly, and the gameplay is so much faster, so many things happening around you, and you're like, how are they able to produce everything that I'm seeing right now in a split second? And that's what it felt like. It felt like this was, you were right, Klein, this was a very polished video game, and I haven't experienced one issue with this, with my adventure on it. It was completely, I would say, in terms of the scale, the most epic thing I've ever experienced in a game. It was absolutely shocking. But Kratos and his cast, his team, everyone has the amount of story that they give each character. Everyone has a lot of time, and you get to kind of go through this lore of God of War. You learn about Freya and why she really feels the way she feels, and her understanding. You go through Kratos as a father who has to deal with his son growing up and letting go, and that was a big thing. There's flashbacks. There's so many things happening. I'm just shocked. And when I finished the game, I'm like, there's so much more to do. There is so much more to do. But the gaming mechanics is what really captivated me in this whole experience, because it felt like playing Spider-Man, for the PS4, PS5. That just the fluidity of being able to learn these controls so quickly and being very complicated at the same time. It just worked, and it was almost like muscle memory. I did come off playing the game, the first one, a month and a half ago, so I was a little bit familiar, but there is so many more options. There are so many things that you can add to your character now. Like there's relics and stones that you'll find across your adventure with your team, and it's just fantastic. I don't know what else to say. It's, you have these new enemies that are just annoying. You want to rip apart, and then there's some people that you feel bad for. There's so many cool things that you're going to experience. I think, and I was absolutely shocked that I didn't expect this from this game. Like, it was so well kept and so well hidden. Everything that we experienced, you as an audience, and if you do get this game, your expectations are out the window.
The thing that sticks out to me the most so far is the level of polish that this game has, and I think it's phenomenal. But yeah, Daniel, if you want to give us your first reactions to the game.
This game is bigger and better in every way. Honestly, I don't think any of us, like we've been saying so far in the last 15 minutes of us talking, that this game is as big as we anticipated it being. But just like what Klein said, this game is so polished. This is like this game sets the bar for, I think, what every game that comes after it. And we were talking about the fluidity of the movements, and Kratos does feel again, Kratos is the same character from that 2018 game, but there's some refinements to him, right? And I love that you could use, like we've seen this in the trailers, that you could use the blades of chaos and just like launch up the platforms, and like it just feels so much faster in some ways as well too, which I really really love. And again, not to say such a definitive statement so early into my first reaction, but just like Klein, like this game really is a masterpiece. It is beginning to end. Just my mouth was just open the whole time experiencing it. And I think that's what brings me with such a loss for words too, is that this game, in the span of 4 years, they were able to do something that was bigger and better than what came before. And it also, I got the same vibe with like The Last of Us Part 2, that when you play The Last of Us Part 2 after playing The Last of Us, it makes that first game feel so small, like in terms of the scope and in terms of just like the places they go and just the feeling of it. Again, 2018 is still a masterpiece of a game, but this game just comes for its lunch in every single aspect. Like, it is elevating everything that you love about the first game. It is improving and streamlining everything that you love of that game. And then on top of it all, you're telling one of the best stories that I've experienced this year across all mediums, and I'm including movies and including shows, that beginning to end, this game just takes you on a ride. It demands your attention. It throws you into the story right away, and it makes everything feel important. Where as much as I loved hearing Mimir's stories in the first game, I never wanted to leave the boat. But the way things are kind of told in this game, again, not a spoiler, but it took me about 32 hours to play to get to the actual credits, and that's including a bunch of side content that I did. I was telling you guys that every piece of like side content or side mission that I did in this game felt like it was part of the main campaign because it was expanding things that we were talking about. They were picking up conversations that we did during the main campaign, but we were talking about it in the side missions. So everything felt so important, and it makes me want to go through every single like realm and like do everything and see everything because I don't want to miss anything that that Santa Monica Studios has made for us. And in a lot of different ways, I also got a little bit of Breath of the Wild vibes from this game because it felt like every single area that I was going to, I was just trying to explore and to see, like, hey, like, what does this do? What's going on over here? And this game will take you off the path a lot because you want to explore something and you'll see something, but like, maybe I can't interact with this yet. But I want to make a note to come back to this. And the discoverability of this game, I think, is so impressive because every moment, every step that you go on in your journey, you're doing something that's incredibly fun or your heart's being torn apart through the story, but you just want to experience it all. And I think that's where I'm at right now. We're talking about it and us talking about it. I'm like, I want to, guys, can we stop? I want to go play it more. Like, I want to go dive back into it because this game just grabs you and it doesn't let go. And anytime you go back into it, you're just like, man, like, I just want to explore. I want to just fight. I want to experience this. And it's not a lot that it's not often that a game does that. But when this game definitely takes a hold of you, like you're going on a ride to the very end. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, when you talk about these side quests in the game, what I first started off playing was I'm like, okay, well, I really like to be a completionist. I know most of us here do as well. I'm like, okay, I'll do a lot of side quests. I'll play the story as well at the same time. And I'm like, and I think again, I'm making good progress in the story. Then I'm like, Daniel, hey man, this is where I've gotten to. Because by this point, Daniel, you were done the game. And you're like, oh, dude, you're not even close. Like, are you sure you're gonna be ready for the review? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Dude, you're not even
What are you
halfway,
talking about? There's so much that's happened. And you're like, no, stop doing the side missions and go ahead. Because again, my mind was going like, yeah, maybe about 18 to 19 hours, I should be done everything. And like you said, I also clocked in at the very end about 32 hours of the game. And I was it was like a race to the finish line, and I was getting emotional. I was holding my breath to the very end because this game is a complete action blockbuster. It elevates it to the point that you don't expect it to. The traversal is amazing. And one of the things that I really loved about this game was it felt very self-aware compared to the first game. There's a lot of moments where you're just kind of walking around and the dialogue that's happening, because again, I love to explore the crypts and getting all the little side stuff, and you just hear like Brock, or you'd hear Atreus be like, how do you find those treasure chests? And I'm like, wait, hold on, wait, what? Like, why did you just say that? Like, how did you know that that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna go do? Or I'd be going to look for a treasure chest, and Brock's like, what are you looking for now? That's my Brock, by the way. And then Atreus would be
great. That's
like,
great.
hey,
I
that's
like it.
pretty good, right? And then Atreus is
Yeah.
like, yeah, he just loves these treasure chests. He's gonna go find them. He's not gonna stop. And I'm like, stop talking about me right now. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to play.
This game is very smart. This game knows what you're doing. This game knows if you're trying to do something that you can't yet. Like there are moments where I'm just like I'm like trying to hit like I'm trying to solve some puzzle in the game. And I'm like throwing my Leviathan axe at it, or I'm using my Blades of Chaos. And they're like, "Oh, I don't think you could do it from this angle." It's like they know that I was trying it because they know that people would try and do it from this angle. And that's what really made me think about Breath of the Wild, because there's some puzzles that I'm like, did I do this the right way? But I think there are multiple ways of doing this, so I don't think it really matters. It just matters that you solved it or you found a way to do it using the tools that they gave you. And I think that's what's so cool about it, is that you feel smart. You feel like just like you do when you defeat an enemy in this game, someone that's been kicking your ass the whole time. You get that same feeling when you solve a puzzle. And I'm like, that's like moment to moment, this game is getting you. It's keeping you.
It's funny that it's funny you guys have drawn the Breath of the Wild comparison, because I thought the same thing with a lot of the puzzles specifically, in that the beautiful thing about Breath of the Wild was that these puzzles, there were always these little bite-sized things that you could complete in under 3 minutes, let's say. And those are here in Ragnarok, and every one of them is just hard enough to make you kind of bang your head against the wall for just a second, but never too hard. And so the second you do it every single time, it's so satisfying. You feel like a genius, but you haven't really, like, at no point did I want to throw my controller against a wall, except for
No.
maybe 1 or 2 times where I just like couldn't find one of those damn bells. I'm looking for, I see
Oh
the
my
two of
god,
them.
yeah.
Where's the third one? But
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? It makes you feel so smart, and that's amazing. And then the combat makes you feel so strong.
Those ravens, I can't believe it. Like, I would spend at least 20 minutes trying to throw my axe to kill those things. And those were probably the hardest parts of this game in terms of just achieving, like, getting it done. But everything else just feels so good. Even though if you're playing on the hardest level, like, it just feels like you've accomplished something. This game doesn't make you feel stupid.
Are you playing on the hardest level, by the way, Anthony? Like,
No, no,
why are you
no.
torturing yourself?
I played story because I really wanted to embrace
Nice.
the story. Then I started playing on just give me balance, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe like anything past that is even harder, and that's not where I want to go with the game. But the one thing that they instilled in me was that there's this eeriness, and just listening to the stories from God of War, the first one, and then listening to the stories, the second one, that you can't believe everything that you see. And that's the thing that kind of like put me in an uneasy feeling where I don't know what I'm watching and what I'm playing right now. I can trust. And that's so cool because you don't get that feeling from a video game. You get that from a film. You don't there are parts where you don't know if this is friend or foe, or if you are in a dream or not. Like, and that's so cool. And you will see throughout the stories that you encounter, there is this little seed that's plotted into your head that, don't trust everything you see because you don't know what's real or not.
Right.
I do remember that.
I did want to
remember you
shout out.
mentioning
Oh,
that.
sorry, please.
No, I was just gonna say I do remember you mentioned that, Anthony, that you were asking us like, is this part that I'm at real or fake? And I think that's what the game does a really good job of, because we know that the game, just like in the 2018 version, the construct is the same, where it's single camera and you're kind of just going based off of that. Now, how do you elevate that? How do you tell a compelling story by including time shifting, day and night shifting, while still keeping it a single camera flow? And that's what this game did a really, really fantastic job of, where it used moments like dreams, it used moments like switching between perspectives to still tell the same story, but also not lose its main mechanic that it's fostered so well. But yeah, Daniel, go ahead. Sorry, you were gonna say.
There's a couple things that I want to shout out in this game, just from the technical side, or just from the side where we're not playing. Eric Williams, director of this game, obviously Cory Barlog was the director for the 2018 game. He wrote that game. That was so much his baby. So I think going into this one, when people were like, "Oh, he's not going to be the lead director of it," well, he's still very much involved in this project. Obviously, this is picking up right as the 2018 one. It's following that story still, right? But just to your credit, Shay, like talking about the direction of this game and using the cinematography of it, it's just visually gorgeous throughout. And I think we travel to different realms in this game. Each one feels very distinct. Each one looks very beautiful as well too, which is always nice. Sometimes I feel like and again. I keep using this Breath of the Wild comparison. There are, or even in Mario Odyssey, like when you're going to different, you know, kingdoms, like everything feels distinct. And then that's what I love so much about this game too, is that no matter where you're traveling in this game, you're going to feel like it is a different experience. You traverse it differently, you could look at things differently. There's it's the themes of this area are fresh, like everything feels new, which is great. The other thing I wanted to shout out, because we've spoken about him a lot on the movie podcast in the last couple weeks, Bear McCreary's score in this game.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
My God,
Like I am
of War.
dying for that score to come out, because just like the 2018 one, I just want to listen to it over and over again because it is incredible. Like I'm literally, I'm wearing my PlayStation shirt today, but I just have like goosebumps all over me right now just thinking about it. It is what, like, when you think of the word epic, which is very overused, this is what defines it, is a score like this. It is incredible.
I would say that
Incredible.
word defines this whole, like, the whole experience. Like, the
Yeah.
music, as I said, it's all these elements, and the music is one of those elements. Like, the closest comparison I can draw, and you'll love this because it is the movie podcast. Like this
Oh.
feels like Return of the King. Like
Yes.
this feels it feels like this culmination. And yes, it's only the second game, but it is however many 20 years of Kratos stories or whatever. This feels like God of War Return of the King, whether it be story, scale, score, everything. It is just we
Yeah.
are going all out. It is going to be the most epic, as you said, overused word, but epic shit you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And it's going to blow your mind. And that's what it does. I think the first game, a lot of people, it is a masterpiece. I will say that. But I had two kind of major complaints coming out of the first game was the like the levels and environments not super varied. Like they ultimately was the
Right.
same kind of wet looking Norse greenery, and then there was some ice and snow here and there. This game, it's everything. The environments are so varied. You go to so many different places with so many different looks. And then the other complaint from the first game was enemy variety. I was like, I am kind of done punching the same Draugr in the face over and over again.
These damn Draugrs over and over.
Whereas
the same troll
in
all the
this
time.
game, you probably fight more different enemy varieties in the first 45 minutes of this video game than you did in the entire run of God of War 2018. It's just it's
Definitely.
amazing, and the scale of it all, it blew me away. There are moments in the first game where the scale of the older God of War games is there. I'm thinking that first fight with Baldur. I'm thinking when you meet the world serpent for the first time and he comes up out of the water, and then obviously that final epic battle with Baldur. This game has, it feels like every hour there's something where just you're
The scale is
just
crazy.
ogling at the scale of it all. It is incredible.
Yeah. And I think part of that too, like when you look at the scale of this game, because each environment is so varied, you're going into it and you're going in with like this fresh perspective each time, or whatever realm you're going to, and you're just like, oh my god, like there is so much here. And again, it was that running thing when we were playing it. It's like, how big is this game? It did not, like, from the trailers that we've seen. Obviously, they're very they're
Guarded.
not going to reveal a lot. They're very guarded. But when you actually get into this, you're like, oh my god, like there are multiple environments in this game that are large that you could traverse through and feel like that moment, in Uncharted 4, that you're just like, oh my god, I could go everywhere here and I could explore. And that was one of a little bit of a gripe I had with the first game in 2018, where it's like, Kratos, you are a god. Why can't you step over this log? Like, it's like you just go around it. Where this game, there's a lot of different traversal paths that you could go through.
It does feel like PlayStation is refining that kind of wide linear storytelling thing that they've been kind of pushing over the last little while. It kind of started,
Yes.
I guess, Uncharted 4 was like, okay, we're going to have these, you're going to go down a hallway and then it's going to open up a little. And then you're going to go down another hallway and it'll open up a little. And then it obviously evolved into God of War 2018, where it was quote unquote kind of open world. I remember that being a big moment in the first game when you come out of the river, the world serpent greets you, and then it's like, hey, you can explore this area at your own pace. And then this feels like the next kind of evolution of that, where every single realm feels like it has these kind of wide sections where I can go, and I'm still discovering things that I thought, oh, I've combed over this for hours upon hours. And then it's like,
Right.
wait, there's this whole other area I didn't even expect, a desert, a field, a whatever that I didn't expect to see. And there's a whole bunch of activities and things to do based upon that.
The open world nature of this game, and I know that we talked about that Uncharted did it, and then we got it in The Last of Us Part 2 as well, where we just got a much bigger, Seattle to play with. And now in this one, we're getting all 9 realms, and each realm, what I love about it is so distinct. And I think that is a testament to the creators of this game, the devs working on this game. Like, hats off to them, because I also know that Santa Monica was very like adamant on also not giving a crunch kind of culture for this game. So for this game to come out the way it did, the way that it's polished, the way that it's created, it I'm in awe. I'm in shock. I can't believe this is the story that we're getting, because it is flawless. There are there are moments where I really had to pause the game and take a breath for myself to be like, well, you know what? If I continue, I'm gonna need some tissues, because I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And I really hope the deluxe edition of this game comes with a giant like Norse tissue box, because that's, I think, the most appropriate thing for this game going forward.
It's funny you say that though, because there are just so many times in this game where I was just like, I would be sitting on my couch playing it, and then I would catch myself when I pause the game, and I'd be like on the edge of my seat, and I'd be like, when did I get here? Like, you don't realize that this game is doing it to you, or you just feel so like tensing up holding the controller because you're just like, oh my god, like I'm just like so laser focused. And a lot of times with this game, like I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna play another 10 minutes, and then an hour goes by. Like time just disappears when you're in this world. It's wild.
I found myself pacing myself because I didn't want to indulge in it so much that it's kind of like eating like your favorite meal. You just don't want to eat it all. You want to embrace it. You want to
Savor
take your
it.
time with it and savor it. So I would spend like an hour here, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it off, and then I'll get a little bit more time. And I was just literally and thinking, oh, this game
Like
is
rationing it out.
really, and not knowing that this game is so big and so long.
Yeah.
Bang for your buck. Like, I know we talk about game prices, but for the cost of this game and what you get for it is absolutely astounding. You're getting like 60 hours of gameplay here and more. Like, there is so much time that you can spend in it.
It's gonna sound
And
really,
it-
oh, woe
yeah.
is me, like, oh no, I have to move on to the next video game to do super cool whatever with. But I do kind of wish I just experienced this as like, just I went into the store on launch day and I had nothing else to play for the next 6
Yeah.
months, and I could just like do what you did, Anthony, where you just sit and you go, I'm only gonna give myself just a little bit of the cookie today, and then tomorrow I'll come back for another bite, and just slow burn over like a big period of time, because like you can indulge in this. You can just take it all down, and it is like drinking from a fire hose, but in the absolute best way.
That's how I played it. You know, my first 4 days with this game, I really again, the last game that I did that with was probably The Last of Us Part 2, and then before that was God of War 2018, where I just took it in and I played like 9 or 10 hours a day. Like in my first 4 or 5 days with this game, I was just playing it nonstop again, because if you haven't heard already, or if you couldn't tell, this game is so much fun to play. Like, just the fun factor of this game is incredible. Like, you feel so powerful. You literally, when you are throwing the blades of chaos, especially with the haptics of the PS5 controller, you feel that. You feel them like spinning. You feel it when you slam. You feel the different like runic attacks. You know, there's one in the game that you get where like Kratos lifts his Leviathan axe up in the air, and like it feels like he creates like this winter storm around him, and you can't use the axe or any other abilities during it, but like the way it feels in the controller, like you just feel like this swirling, you feel like this wind around you, and it's just also so cool to see how much variety there is within those attacks, and with each like different ability there are different animations for it. As you level it up, the animations get more intense as well too. So like just from beginning, like from top to bottom, this isn't just like, you know, I remember when the first trailer showed out and people were upset that Kratos got into the boat the same way.
Oh my god.
It's like, oh look, it's the same game.
Reused
And you're like,
animation, lazy game
how-
dev.
How
Ugh.
you
could
know,
they?
like how could they do that? And then you actually go into this game and you're like, wow, this is just a total reinvention of this game again, mechanically, top to bottom. And this is running on PS4. Again, we're all talking from experience playing on PS5, but from what we've been seeing from previews and what I've been seeing, it's running really damn well. So I can only imagine what's a console exclusive, a PS5 exclusive version of whatever they do next is going to look like.
You would have thought
Right.
that from the last game to this game, Kratos would have learned a new way to get into the boat. Like,
You
how
know?
is he using the same way of getting into a boat? There's so many other ways.
What are we thinking?
Well,
Like sliding across
the
the
boat.
hood, like he's like in like a or using like pole
The oar?
vaulting on the axe.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Anthony.
There are things that don't need to be fixed when they're not broken, right? Like, what
Right.
else? How else do you get in a boat? You get in it, you step in, and it's the same animation. Do you want him to cartwheel in it? Do you want him to put the boat on his head?
I do.
Could you
I do want him
imagine?
to cartwheel in it, though. I'll be honest. Now that you've put that out
Yeah.
there, that is what I wanna
He's
see
not
for
that
the last
guy.
few months.
He's not. Kratos
Yeah.
is. I am Kratos. I get in boat. I get out boat. I walk.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
him.
maybe
Like what?
maybe PS2 Kratos maybe would have cartwheeled
Yeah.
into the boat, but this is an old
Definitely.
Kratos. He has seen
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
shit. He is not doing. He's put that life behind him. That he left that in Greece.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I gotta ask you guys now, between the Blades of Chaos and the Leviathan axe, what did you feel like you were using the most? Like, what was your main weapon to go in? And I'll start with Klein first.
It's funny because in the first game, I remember it being such a moment when I got the Blades of Chaos for the first time, and I didn't use the Leviathan axe after that unless it was for puzzle purposes. And like these just feel so good. But then in this game, you start playing with the axe, and just the novelty of throwing it and then pressing triangle and having just it
Oh,
thunk back in your hand is
Best feeling.
maybe the best feeling in video games. And so I'm going Leviathan axe. I love all the puzzle stuff you get to do with the Leviathan axe. Like how many times I know it gets old, but how many times will I pull a chain to reveal a gear, freeze the gear, and then go through the door and recall the axe? But it never gets old. Like I love it every
never.
single time.
You feel so powerful doing it, right? Like like again, it goes down to the sound design and just like the mechanics of just something so simple where I'm just like throwing my axe all the time and I'll just throw it somewhere in the open world and go continue on with the story just because I love that feeling of when I see an enemy coming, I'm just like, okay, come to me, and you get it and you're like, let's fucking go.
I love
And then you
throwing it
just go
into
for it.
the enemy and like freezing them and running up and
Yeah.
bashing them with your
Oh my
fists for a
God.
second. Or if there's two enemies, throwing
Your
the axe in
shield.
one. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my god, it feels great. For myself, yeah, I was using the axe a lot. Like, and it was same as Klein. It's such a moment in the 2018 God of War when you get the blades and you're just like, okay, I'm using these forever. But I would for a lot of this game, I would be using the axe as much as I could, and then I would like do something with the axe. Like you kind of get your feeling for like the different runic attacks and stuff. You're like, okay, I'm gonna start off with my axe. And then I'm going to charge up my blades of chaos and like really just kind of charge them up and then do a heavy attack. And then I'm going to call my axe back. So you would get into the flow of how you would want
Combo.
to attack every like victim in this game. But yeah, I would say axe was my go-to for
I
this one
do
for
think
sure.
that this game does a very good job of making you switch a lot and
Yes.
making it
Yeah.
feel good to switch a lot. Like I didn't do
Oh,
that in the first
100%.
game, whereas in this game I was doing what you're saying, or I would come up with an enemy where, oh, this enemy I have or don't have to use the Blades of Chaos, but I'm advantageous to use the Blades of Chaos, and then I have
Right.
the axe to throw at a nightmare and stab it in the eye, and then
Yeah.
continue whipping around the blades.
It's the variety, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like using the different weapons again. Breath of the Wild again. You're going weapon to weapon to feel like what feels better for this encounter.
I wish there was like a stat that would show me how many times I've recalled the axe back to myself, because that number alone would scare me. Because you're right, I would just throw it into yonder or just throw it at an enemy, and then when they're all charging at me, I'd call it back, and I'd see the axe as it's coming back chop through them. And I think that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. It's not just a hokey axe that you're throwing. It still serves its purpose upon recall, and I think that was
Right.
beautiful. But Anthony, well, what about yourself? Was it blades or axe for you?
Blades of Chaos for me. It was for a strategical point. Like it's great reach. I can get to my enemy a lot faster. I can bring them to me. I can go to them. I can, launch them in the air, bring them down. But it just felt fluid. But it's a combination of axe and blades where you can be hitting someone in the head with your axe, and then your blade will come out of nowhere and just swipe them up, and then you get your axe again, you chop them down. It's just that fluidity between jumping from one weapon to another just works so well. And I was holding my controller in such a way I never held it before, so I can get this this animation. And sometimes I felt like, am I doing it right, am I not doing it right? I just feel like I need to hold it in a certain way to get the combos that I wanted. I also loved the shield, because one cool thing about this game is you get to get different shields now, and you can upgrade your shield, and depending on your fights style, you'll have a shield that defends or a shield that deflects. So I love
Yeah.
going through the different shields, but also like pummeling another person's shield so I can break his shield and then axe him and then and blade him. And it's just and I guess like every like R3 kill down works with the weapon that you have, which I noticed they didn't do that before.
Right.
So if you have your axe, your R3, it gives you a different animation compared to just like being punching someone.
Speaking of the R3 kills,
moment to moment.
did anyone have like a favorite R3? I mean, we don't have to spoil the enemy you did it upon, but there's like one R3 finisher in this game where Kratos literally grabs, and it's not a big boss enemy, it's an enemy you encounter a ton, but he grabs them, grabs their lower jaw, and rips it down to their waist. And
that's
every single time, I'm like, oh, that's awful, but I also kind of love it.
Doesn't he also rip out the heart when he does that too? Because I feel like I see him go rip, and then I think I see him grab something in a way.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm too busy looking at the bottom jaw hanging from like the belt buckle.
It's wild.
That one was just insanity. I think for me it was one of the axe ones where I think when I look at like how I use my weapons, I think I was very split, even using like melee a lot too, because punching as Kratos and while using his shield and kicking feels almost as good as an actual weapon, because Kratos is the weapon himself. So while I'm punching people down, I noticed that like I'd maybe only knock down a quarter of their health, but I'm already getting the R3 option. So I pump into R3 and I pull out my axe and I go right through them like butter. And it felt satisfying every time. Not like a serial killer, I promise you, but just as a Greek god.
But like moment to moment, this game makes you feel powerful, right? And I think that's what draws you into it, and that's why it feels so addicting when you play it, is because every single moment of this game, you feel like you could pull off anything that you want. And the tools that you have, the weapons that you have, the different abilities that you unlock and you upgrade, you're constantly working towards something. So, having finished the game now, I'm like, oh, I have all this XP. And then you could be like, okay, let me invest this in different areas that I didn't anticipate maybe looking into before. And I think that's what's so cool too, right? There's different ways that you could use your XP. So I feel like in the first game I was upgrading abilities all the time, but this one I'm like, okay, let me upgrade this and let me upgrade this and let me go to my weapons now and let me go to my armor now. There's so much variety in where you could kind of work and spend your time on things, which really just makes this game you could get lost in it for a really, really long time. And like Klein said, I wish we got to just spend months with this game just to get lost in it.
And I think while you say that you feel powerful in this game, I think this game does a great job of also just humbling you. There's boss battles and fights that you get into where I'm like, oh, I got this, and maybe they'll just tickle me, and I'll be down four quarters of my health will be just down. I'm like, oh, okay, well that was clearly a loss for me. But now, how do I go back into it? How do I change up my style? And I think this game had me doing that a lot. It had me switching how I'm gonna play. Whereas I feel like in 2018, I could just keep mashing and going away at it, and eventually I'd knock somebody down. There's a moment in the first game where you fight this giant dragon, and it's this epic moment. It's beautiful, and I was like, oh, when am I gonna get that in this game? And I think this game does that moment like 8 or 9 times throughout the whole gameplay. And I'm like,
oh, for sure.
I'm not ready for this. Give me a moment to breathe. But now you gotta up the ante a lot, and wow, just beautiful.
I do think it is important though that we do touch on, because we've been talking about the scale and the massiveness and the feeling powerful. I am a Greek god, but it does really, really, really good, nuanced, quiet character. Like it can get really small and just deep character, and like these moments that will make you cry. You will tear up. I cried multiple times throughout my playthrough, and it's amazing that it can do both so well, that it can be these literally me taking on the universe, the end of the world, and also like just me and my son, and we are forehead to forehead, and I'm saying something and he's saying something, and it gets deep, which I mean that was the biggest surprise from 2018, was like, oh, Kratos, he's just always angry, Calliope, like he just yells a lot. And they added character depth, and I think they did that even further, and with the added tech of the PS5 and all that, like the character performances specifically are like bar none. Like just the switches of emotion within just minute little seconds you can see in the actors' faces. It's incredible, but it is amazing that they can go so big and also so small.
That's what I was actually going to say with Christopher
Dude, he's
Judge,
the man.
Sonny Solchik, Danielle Basutti, who plays Freya. Like the performance in this game across the entire cast are phenomenal. I did not anticipate loving the amount of like every single character in this game so much. It's no secret that you're going to encounter Odin and Thor and like these other characters. They are all characters that you will love and understand and have personality and have depth to them. They're not just a a nameless troll that you would fight and you have to fight. Like, you're going to learn who these characters are. And I think that's what this game does so well. And you look at the performances, obviously, as we said. I think Richard Schiff as Odin, phenomenal. I think Sonny Solchik, who plays Atreus, who has a lot more to do in this game. He's not just like that, that little bit of a brat sometimes in the first game where he kind of discovers that he's a god. It's like, oh, we could do anything. You see the consequences of that in this game. You see, you see these characters go on journeys that are so deep. And like Klein said, the quiet moments, the moments where these characters are alone, where nothing's happening at all, are more impactful sometimes than when the things are going, when all hell is breaking loose. You're just sitting in a room with Kratos and Atreus, and you are just in that room with them. And it's masterful.
I'll
the
say, and
performances how
no
that pulls
spoilers,
off.
but it'll give you guys goosebumps. Story in a tent. Like,
Yeah.
Oh
it-
yeah,
it just
yes.
one of those, like, it just these
Yeah.
character moments where it can literally be two characters really talking about not a whole lot, but it is so impactful and it means so much to hear them connecting and speaking. And it's not just Atreus and Kratos. I found myself feeling the same way. Whereas I thought Brock and Sindri were funny and fun in the first game, like, they have character moments in this game that are like on
Yes.
par with Kratos and Atreus from the first game.
Everyone is just bringing their A game.
Yeah, that is what I wanted to touch on next here was, we talk about Atreus and his role in this game and how that father and son dynamic is elevated completely. But a lot of what you're going through with Kratos in this game, you feel like you're now cracking that outer shell that he's had and really getting to what's inside of him. And there are things that Kratos, again, not a man of many words, but when he'd say even the smallest sentence, it would go through you like the Leviathan axe, just right through the player,
Yeah.
and you'd feel every weight of it. Again, the performance is phenomenal. Christopher Judge, Sonny Solchik, they they know they know what to do now. They've created this level, this world that what we got with Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us. We're now getting this father son relationship that it 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 touched me. It brought me down to tears, and so much of it was just the beauty of knowing this character from the last game to see how he is now.
Yeah. Wow. Like, I can't wait just to get back into it. Like, I'm just so excited to get back to the game because it really is like when you like we talk about on this episode we've brought up games like Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild and The Last of Us. Those I think are genre defining games. I think those are generation defining games, and I think God of War Ragnarok belongs on that mantle. This is a generation defining video game that we're getting so early into the life of the PS5. We're 2 years into it. Obviously, it's also a PS4 game, but it just gives you so much hope of what the next 5 or 6 years are going to look like, especially from PlayStation Studios. We know Naughty Dog's working on stuff. We know Insomniac's working on stuff. We know, oh my god, I'm blanking on Ghost of Tsushima. Sucker Punch is working on stuff. Like, there are so many incredible studios that are working with within PlayStation Studios, and you get it. Like, you see these games and you understand what Sony is going for with these narrative driven single player games. You just get lost in it, and this is going to be the game that everyone's talking about, I think, for the rest of the year.
Now, I wanted to quickly touch upon just, are there any criticisms or areas of the game that you guys felt like, okay, I wish this was a little better, or I wish they took a different route with this? Klein, I know you mentioned in the beginning that there was something that you had, obviously without going to spoilers.
Yeah, there was one character that from the beginning of the game to maybe about a third, they have a turn that I think happens very quickly, but it may have been the way I was digesting the game. I understand why it was done. I like where
Right.
they end up. I like the rest of that arc. You are all nodding like you know exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
There is a turn that happens for going from the beginning of this game or early in this game to about, it happens, I guess, maybe a third or halfway through, where I was like, okay, that was fast, but I understand why we're going there. So
Right.
that was really my only thing. And like, that is the most, like, I am picking at nits. Like, that is the most like tiny little bump in the road and and then very quickly it was, ooh, shiny object, and I was on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I know what you're referring to, and I'm curious because this is definitely a game I'm going to replay the story one more time. There's no doubt about it, and I'm curious now, knowing what I know, how will I respond? How will I pick up on certain things? Because this game demands to be replayed. Already, it's a massive game as it is, and I can't wait to finish up all these little side quests that I have going on, which again are games within themselves. They're massive
Yeah.
upon themselves. So I'm curious, going back to the story, what will my emotions be? Will this game also, introduce different elements if I play a different style or different way? And that's what's got me
Right.
excited.
I didn't have really any gripes with the story itself. I did run into some technical issues, but again, it happens. Nothing too crazy. I would have some moments sometimes. It happened about 2 or 3 times, but 2 or 3 times over the span of the
40 hours or whatever.
32
Yeah.
hours that that it took me to beat this game, where I'd be going into, like, again, because all the cutscenes happen in real time, the audio would stop, they'd be like, there wouldn't be any captions on screen
Oh, weird.
anymore, or the characters will just be like mouthing. I'm like, oh, this is a really quiet moment. I'm like, oh wait, no, they're saying something. So I would just restart the checkpoints, and if that didn't solve it, I would just close and open the game, and then it'd be fine again. But again, little hiccups like that over the span of uh, a game that's this size is nothing. It's nothing that you'll remember, but it is something I did encounter, so I didn't want to bring it up. That, like,
Mhm.
hey, this is something I experienced, but this is what you could do to fix it. It's not game breaking. It didn't impede on my progress. It was just a little hiccup that happens sometimes in a game that is doing so much.
And
right?
full disclaimer, I mean, while we were playing this game in the time that we had it, we did get about 2 updates as well. So I'm curious
Yeah.
if a lot of this, because I luckily I did not have anything technical like that, whether it was frames or visuals or audio. So I'm wondering, because I was obviously playing a lot later than you, if those things were kind of patched along the way of my
Right.
playthrough.
Did you guys play performance mode? Did you play, resolution mode? I did the performance. I did 60
Performance,
frames.
yeah.
Performance.
It looks so incredible anyways, like at 1080p coming in at 60 frames per second or whatever it is, that I'm sure if you bumped it up, it's just like The Last of Us Part 1. You bump it up to that what a, the high fidelity mode or what have you,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and you're like, oh, okay, like this does look a little bit better, but with the added frames, especially in an action game like this, like it is stunningly beautiful,
Yeah.
even running at a lower resolution.
You don't notice it. Like, it's gorgeous. Like, it's ridiculous how good looking this game is.
Yeah. I wish I had a TV that did 120 frames.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I would love to have, and I guess I got caught up in certain battles, was the ability to block from behind. Like if you could take your shield
yeah.
and like shield
Yeah.
yourself, because there are points in the game where you don't see an enemy and your teammate will say, "Hey, someone's coming from the left or right." I'm dyslexic, so that could have been like right or left, so I'm going the wrong way. And I don't see them and they hit me from behind. I wish I had like the ability to put my shield behind me, because I have a shield. I can like block them from behind and then kind of rotate and fight them. Just little things like that I think would be great for the next version, if there is ever a next version of this game, or part 3 would be really, really cool. Just like something from Arkham Knight where you have the ability to block from that back.
Yeah. Like
I was gonna say that sounds very Batman, just the way you just
Yeah.
like throw a shield back. I will
Yeah.
also say the menus and everything, and this was a gripe from the first game as well. You can figure it out. There's a lot. There's whether you're upgrading this and skills and runes and upgrading those runes and runic attacks and upgrading those. The menus are still, I think they're better than they were in the first game, still cumbersome. Like still just
Yeah.
like I don't really 100% know what I'm looking for, but I know it's somewhere in here.
Yeah, it's daunting for sure.
I'd be
think-
hitting
and I
R1
think
or R2 by accident sometimes.
I also wish that, like, I use the map a lot in this game, but the thing that sucks is I wish there was like a fast way to get to the map, because
Yeah.
I'm like hitting the touchpad and then I'm hitting like R1 or R2, like to tab over 4 tabs each time, even though I'm just trying to like point myself in the right direction. I wish I'm like, okay, like I wish there was a little bit of a quicker way to access the map. But again, it's like little things like that that don't really stop me from enjoying. It's just you notice it when you're doing it, especially what I've been doing now, like we have been doing, is just kind of exploring everything else that this game has to offer. I find myself going into the maps, into the menus more. You'll definitely get used to the menus, but it can be, especially in those first couple hours, very daunting.
And I don't know if this was
to
something
figure out what everything is.
Yeah, I don't know if this was something that, is going to come out at launch or down the road, or if there's any plans for it. But maybe I missed it. I didn't see a photo mode in
There
this game.
isn't. It's not in there. It's
Yeah.
just like 2018 didn't launch with one, and then there was like a update fairly soon after. It wasn't right at launch, it was a few weeks after. And I felt the same. I remember there was a moment in the first 45 minutes of the game where I was like, I need to capture this. And I opened up and no photo mode. So yeah,
Nothing
it's
there, yeah. I played my first playthrough of 2018 with no photo mode too, and I'm like, with us, like we're the early adopters. We're there at the very beginning. People who come in later, they get all the bugs.
They get the best version of the game.
They get the best version of the game. Where it's like, damn, like there were so many moments in this game where I'm like, I just want to screenshot. I just want to live in this moment. Let me frame this up. Let me play with this a bit more. But when it eventually does come,
I also want like
all the more reason to play it.
Controller feedback, and we get a little bit of it in the game, but the ability to like really press that R2 and that R, like that
The resistance
L2,
of it?
More
and I'm wondering,
resistance,
like they probably were worried that we might break our controllers because the amount of times we are hitting those same buttons. But like that
Right.
would have been great, especially with any bow and arrow type of mechanic, because Ratchet and Clank did a really good job of incorporating those into the weapons. I would love to see that in the future God of War.
I think that's
Yeah,
just
where
a
it's, like,
product
feels
of the
crunchy.
PS4, honestly. I think
Yeah.
it's just a product
Yeah.
of this game wasn't made for one system.
No, that's a very good point. Well, gentlemen, I feel like if there's anything you guys want to say, say it now, or we can rush over to the realms of final recommendations. We're all good.
I like that. It sounds like a place that we would travel to for
We,
sure.
we would, yeah. I'm gonna open up our gates and we're gonna walk right through. We're gonna let the level load a
Yeah.
little bit, and here we are at final recommendations. And I'm gonna kick it off with our guest of honor, Klein Felt. Klein, please let us know, how would you recommend this game to somebody?
I think that this might be the PlayStation 5's first must play. If you are a video gamer of any type, whether that means you buy Madden and Call of Duty every year and that's about it, or you play literally everything, this is a game that you need to experience. It's a story you need to experience, and it is the whole package. Like, go play this game. I know that this review is going to come out before the game comes out, but the second
Go
you can
buy
get
this
your hands
game.
on this game, get your hands on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Klein, you're pretty much saying if you can go right now into the PSN store and pre-order and download this game right now, that is a must.
Yes.
Daniel, what about yourself?
This is the reason why you play on PlayStation. It's experiences like this. This is a game. This is a game that you said it perfectly, Shay. Like this is something that you'll always remember, and this is something that you're gonna go into this feeling like, okay, I love 2018. How could this possibly top it? And this game doesn't. This game not only just tops it, but it does everything better. It's bigger and better in every way from the 2018 game. This game is the standard of what I want from a video game. This is going to make every other game that I play after this harder, because you have such a high bar that Sony, that Santa Monica Studios set with this, that everything that comes after it is going to pale in comparison to it. The performances are incredible. The gameplay is incredible. If you feel so powerful moment to moment, there's always something engaging, something happening, something grabbing your attention. I adored my time with this, just like The Last of Us Part 2, just like Breath of the Wild, just like Mario Odyssey. My favorite games of all time, God of War Ragnarok, is going on that mantle. I adore this game. I love everything that it did, and it makes me so excited to see what Santa Monica Studios works on next. This is a real gem for me. This is a must play. Klein said it. This is the first must play of PS5. You can't miss this, no matter what type of gamer you are. There's a before and there's an after God of War Ragnarok, and you deserve to experience what life is after this game.
That's beautiful. Very well put. Anthony, give us your final recommendation.
This is a real gem. Like there hasn't been an experience like this in a really long time for me. Story wise, gameplay wise, scale. And I don't want to come off so too hyperbolic, but it is a monumentous game. It is absolutely epic. And the adventure you go on and the story. And if you really care about these characters, you're going to get so much from them. Like the amount of weight that these people bring into a video game is absolutely shocking. I was floored, and I thought, for a movie buff like me and a gamer, they combine both worlds so beautifully, and it's something that you haven't experienced in a really long time, and I'm just shocked with what we got, and I encourage you, if you have a PS5, PS4, go buy it. That is, like I said, bang for your buck, the best game you can buy for your system. It's so good.
It makes you want to see everything, right? When that's what's impressive. Like even side missions, like you could spend I spend 40 hours with this game right now. I want to spend another 20 or 30 just seeing everything that this game has to offer. And not all games do that. Sometimes you hit credits and that's it. But this game gives you so much to keep playing, to keep powering up, to keep leveling up, to keep exploring. There's so much there.
I think for myself, not that they need any more help, but it's unfortunate that Modern Warfare 2 came out at this time, because I bought, the Vault edition or the whatever edition of the game that is, and I haven't been able to touch it. If digital games could collect dust right now, unfortunately, that game is collecting it, because I am just lost in this world. This is a real gem for me. This is the reason why you buy a PS5. This is the reason why you want to experience emotions in life and playing a video game. I was telling my girlfriend, I'm like, I wish you could understand what I'm going through right now while playing this game, because she'd ask me, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, I can't tell you. I'm under NDA. But no, this is just what an experience, and I think you should pick it up no matter what. Play the 2018 version if you haven't already, because this is a perfect follow up to it. Before we wrap up here, Klein, I do want to give you a chance to plug your socials. Let everybody know what to expect from the Controller Club, because my God, what an awesome podcast that is as well. I love listening to you guys, and I love that everyone kind of is in a different realm, if I should say, when you guys are recording.
The intercontinental podcast. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
You can find me. I'm everywhere. I'm at the Klein Felt. That's TheKleinFelt. And as you said at the beginning, and there, I write for the direct.com. I also edit over there. All the fandoms, universes you love, things that you guys cover here on the podcast, MCU, DCU, superheroes, video games, we got it over there. And then, of course, the Controller Club, which is a podcast that I host wherever you're listening to this show. Head on over, give us a subscribe, a review, a rating. We do very similar stuff to here, just talking about video games. It's me, a good friend, Tom Drew from the UK, and a capital J journalist from Australia, Lauren Rouse. And we do the best we can. It is the best video game podcast we are capable of making, and I will hold me to that.
No, it is fantastic. You guys are so great. I love listening to you guys as well. Of course, this was the Week Podcast, and I want to give a huge shout out to Klein. Thank you again for coming on board and talking about God of War with us. Because this was a long time coming. We hope to have you back on the show again. I think video games will definitely be something we want to add to our experience for our listeners as well. So definitely, if you loved what you heard today, first of all, go follow Klein on everything that you possibly can. Just don't follow him at his house, because that's creepy. And make sure you're listening to his stuff, giving him the 5 stars as well, and checking him over on the direct also. Again, this was the Movie Podcast. We drop a new episode every single Monday, and throughout the week we have news and reviews that come out, and even interviews as well. And we have some great interviews coming up very, very soon. We will be also hopefully having a spoiler talk about God of War when that time comes. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget, you can follow us at the Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd, MySpace, LinkedIn, and of course, you can join our Discord as well. We are having some great conversations in there. Maybe this week's question of the week will be something to do with video games. I'm gonna throw a little spice in there. Who knows? And you can write into us at hello@themoviepodcast.ca. That was This Time at the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.